how far you can push to get your rights to education, how far anybody can fight to get themselves educated. James Meredith, he pushed so hard, it caused a civil war and then a social revolution that was unseen like any ever before, which brought in a quality of change to the way of life for millions of people in our world. My dear listeners of Radio Udaan, this is your RJ Babuji Janak Rajan. You are listening to the latest episode of the Great Indian Monolog. James Meredith is our man of the show. In all probability, you wouldn't have heard about James Meredith. He's a living legend, but the pity of the way we live is we don't hail real heroes of our world. We worship trivia like a glorious, cricketing life of a player or a movie star or a politician or some political ramblings, but we don't pay attention to the things that really matter to our lives. Let's come back to James Meredith. James is an American Air Force veteran, recently retired from the Air Force. He wants to enroll in a college to study further. The college he chooses gives him admission but withdraws the offer once it knows that he hid a fact while filling the application. What is the fact he hid? That he is a black man. The year is 1960. United States of America is not so united at this point in time. Racial segregation is at its peak. Blacks are not allowed to join public schools and colleges run by governments. See, even governments. And admission is strictly for only white people. University of Mississippi delays his admission for 20 months and later refuses admission multiple times on the same ground that he lied in his application form, or rather he hidden information in his application form. When James goes to court, the white court, the court which is predominantly with white employees, it drags its feet on the case for months and months. Frustrated by the delay, James goes to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court hears it swiftly and orders that the university admits him in the next window without fail. If the order is not met with, it will be a violation of the court's order and the violators will be punished by law. The governor of Mississippi, a whites-only supporter who himself is an alumni of the same institute, gets James arrested on the pretext that he falsified information in his application that would cause social disharmony. If a criminal case is filed and if a person is arrested, he cannot get admission into an institute. This is by law. So in order to use that provision to deny the admission for James, the governor, he foils a case on James that he disclosed wrong information in an application. What was the application in the context here? It is not the university application, but the voter ID application that James filled, in which he accidentally wrote the year as 1960 instead of 1961. Applicants with criminal record cannot be admitted into the university. So the governor had a reason to deny admission and reject the Supreme Court instruction this time. James again runs to local court because he is a law-abiding citizen, and the local court throws the case out when it gets to hear and release James at once. By now, the plight of James gets the attention of the highest authority of the United States of America, the President of USA, John F. Kennedy. On his instructions, the Department of Justice takes up the case of James. Facing the prospect of contempt of court and possible arrest, the university board transfers the decision-making power and the responsibility of the consequences to the governor of Mississippi, who is a white supporter. James goes to class. The governor personally blocks him from entering. James then is accompanied by Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division Chief and Chief U.S. Marshal, some kind of a protection force run by the judicial arm of the U.S. government. So when he goes to the college on his second attempt, he is accompanied by these people. The governor personally blocks their entry again and reads out the state's right that empowers his action. That, he is the deciding authority of his states and he has a right to deny permission for James to get enrolled. The president of USA is a peace-loving man, so he believes in the power of dialogue and he begins an earnest negotiation with the governor. The governor belongs to the opposition political party, so it becomes a need of the hour to have a negotiation, to have a dialogue with the governor, but the governor refuses to budge. While the negotiations are on, the president orders the Mississippi National Guards, a state protection force, to be nationalized. There is a reason for him doing that. Yeah, you will realize it a bit later, in my talk show. During the negotiation, the governor says he will allow James access to classes only if a marshal points a gun at James' head while he is sitting in the class. Seemingly to protect others from James, it seems. President refuses this illogical, unreasonable request and the negotiation breaks down. How can you point a gun to the head of a student while he is sitting in a class and still expect him to grasp the education imparted by the institution? Soon, rumors start swirling that the governor will be arrested anytime from his home because of the contempt of court and because of the presidential intervention. So supporters start gathering at the governor's residence to prevent the arrest. The numbers of the supporters swell to 2,000. They said, we will build a wall of flesh and let's see which government will breach through us to get our governor. The arrest never happens. Meanwhile, the federal government, it sends dozens of marshals to accompany James to protect him for his safe entry into the classroom. Supported by a team of 538 law enforcers, James arrives at the university on September 30, 1965, flanked by marshals. The law enforcers, they basically set up Operation Rome in the admin block of the university to oversee peaceful execution of the Supreme Court order backed by execution power of the president. That James must be allowed to join and study. White protesters, they start gathering in the campus, including members of radical white supremacist groups that are armed. Local police force, they put up barricades around the university and blocks roads that are used to access the campus. But on the night of the same day, 30th September, local police yields to the community sentiment and removes the blocks from the roads. Some of them even actively encouraged the supporters to go forth and attack the marshals. The president has a scheduled press briefing in the White House on the same evening. He announces that James has been able to go to college with government protection and that the event was peaceful. Only he doesn't know the ground realities as the situation conveyed back to the federal government is filtered out and does not reach the president before the press meet. Somebody in the military, they block the information from reaching the president that the situation is haywire in the University of Mississippi and communal clashes are about to break. This information doesn't reach the president, so the president, he goes and announces to the world that he is able to secure admission. It is a form of integration. The segregated country, black and whites were segregated. This act is touted as an integration act. In Mississippi, Molotov cocktails and acid bottles rain in on the operations building. The president had instructed the marshals not to use firearms when they entered the college, so they used only tear gas to dissipate the crowd. It doesn't help. Gunshots are fired by protesters, white protesters. 2 journalists are killed, 27 marshals wounded. Arsonists, they start setting vehicles and shops on fire. Looting follows. Local government refuses to intervene and control the aggressors. The stage is set for a civil war. Just to prevent one man from getting his rightful access to education, half of the population, the representative of half of the populations, they are up in arms to prevent James from joining the college. Apprised of the escalating situation, the president invokes Resurrect Act, an act used to quell civil unrest and orders troop mobilization. A part of the troops fly in and reach the university just in time to protect the marshals who would otherwise have been killed by the protesting crowd. Rest of the troops they reach by road. Tanks roll in but without ammunition. The president wants to scare the protesters away but not to kill or injure them by use of force. On October 1st, the town saw 31,000 troops walking on to bring the situation under control. 31,000 troops just to help one guy get his access to education. 31,000 troops mobilized just to ensure that a single black man gets access to the education he deserves by his constitutional rights. By late evening on October 1st, the situation is brought under complete control. At one point, 20,000 troops were present inside the university that hosted hardly 4,000 students, 1:5. For every student, there was 5 troopers inside the university. A cache of weapons are discovered and removed from the campus. Arrests are made. Only a third of the arrested are students. Rest are from various white supporter groups and criminals who use the opportunity to loot and arson. On October 1, 1965, James entered the university after a last-minute plea by the governor to pay the full tuition fee of James anywhere outside the state is rejected by the federal government. The governor, he makes a last-ditch attempt offering to pay the fee of James' education that the governor himself would pay, provided James gets enrolled in a university outside of his state, because it's a pride issue for the governor. The federal government rejects the offer. What happens next? The college administration advises the students to not fraternize with James. James is socially isolated, but he is guarded by 24/7 by hundreds of troops as assassination attempt is a possibility by a white supremacist group. Slowly, life becomes normal again in the campus and the town. Few months later, in 1966, James decides to do a 200-mile march against fear. He refuses offers from many political and cultural outfits to join the march, and he starts walking alone to raise awareness among the black community about the human rights, the constitutional rights, and the need for all of them to vote, so that their constitutional rights can be ensured. So James, he starts walking alone. On the evening of day 2, James is shot by a white sniper who actually fired 3 shots hiding in the green cover that surrounded a road James is walking. James is seriously wounded but survives. Martin Luther King, the man behind the black movement in America, he announces his support for the cause taken up by James. Volunteers from across the country start marching those 200 miles for James in the absence of James. By the time he recovers from the hospital and returns to resume the march, he sees around 15,000 people walking for him, on behalf of him and for the black people of America. A lot of black people registered for the first ever time to vote, so that they can press their demands and policy changes through their votes. White America relents, and soon the doors of all public institutes of USA are open for black people to join. So, the segregated country, it starts integrating in a big way just because of one man's quest for his rights to education that caused a civil war and a revolution that followed. A good revolution it was. James Meredith is still living. He is a living legend. University of Mississippi has installed a statue in the campus and celebrated the 50th year of the integration of American society in the year 2012. For all the flaws and muscle flexing of United States of America in global arena, their working democracy is a beacon of light for the modern world. Agreed, the problem still persists and black people are still fighting for their rights even in United States of America. I still strongly believe that if any democracy can bring in a lasting change and equitable rights, USA will be the first one to do that, because it has a functional democracy which works and which delivers at a real good speed. My dear listeners of Radio Udaan, I ask you to take a moment to think about our constitutional rights and what we are getting and what we are doing about those rights which are denied to not just us, to our fellow Indians who may be from lesser privileged walk of life, maybe a tribal person, maybe a poor villager. Are we ensuring equity of participation for all of our brothers and sisters of this great country? If not, why? If you are of voters' age, if you are of voting age, if you can vote, what are you going to do about it with your vote? I am not, talking about any political groups and their agendas, their manifestos here. I'm talking about our country. As and when we elect a newer government, be it on a local body or the state or the central government, are we exercising our right to vote? Are we demanding our right to be fulfilled? Think about that. And when the next election comes, I hope you will remember James Meredith and exercise your vote with caution. Thank you so much for listening patiently to this latest episode of the Great Indian Monolog. I'm really, really happy interacting with you week after week with stories like this and much more. And much more to come for sure, my dear listeners. And I'll talk to you again in another episode in a week's time. Till then, stay blessed, stay tuned, and be happy. Bye-bye.